So, for anybody who has been following for a long time, which I believe almost everybody here is, and probably a few people watching. Sorry, I'm in frame, right? Cool. I have done a project for the last few years where I've been sharing quotes and stories from Americans who were born into slavery. Now, there is a lot of context to this, a lot of setup. I encourage you, if you're watching, to go back. We actually, on YouTube, if you look up Just Southbury, have a whole playlist of exactly these videos. There is a lot that we have discussed, a lot of different perspectives we have shared. Recently, or the most recent one where I talked a lot about the critiques of the Slave Narrative Project, which is the project I've used to source most of these quotes and stories. It is an incredible database of interviews directly with Americans who were born into slavery and experienced it. And because of that, I think it's very amazing for getting any sense of a first-person perspective. Something I found very difficult to do once you got past the few famous Americans who were born in slavery who learned to read and write and went on to do so at a wide level and disseminate it. Once you get past a lot of those famous people, it was a lot harder to find direct perspectives. When I was talking about the critiques of the Slave Narrative Project, I talked about one person who was writing their own book on it and decided not to use any of those narratives, specifically because he felt that they painted the entire institution of slavery in too favorable of a light. Now, this is for a lot of different reasons, but among these include the fact that somebody is being sent to interview them, so they might not want to make somebody angry. Most of the interviewers were white. Most of the people who were doing this were living off the government and had a lot of incentive not to rock the boat. There are a lot of very interesting, valid reasons why this could be the case. I am not the expert, though, so I do encourage you to do this research. I have done a lot of research on this, and I am by no means even close to being an expert. There's simply so much to learn. So today, I want to take you through my journey a bit, as I have been, and hopefully share that journey of learning. So when I saw that passage, my first thought was, okay, so what did this person build their book on then? And what they built their book on were fugitive slave letters, which are one of the other primary ways we have to understand personal perspectives from Americans born into slavery. Now, this is also very connected with a lot of different critiques and ideas and ways of research and different amounts of trust we have in different types of research. But when I share this, what I want you to think about are the critiques towards the Slave Narrative Project for producing interviews that seemed too wholesome and laid back or too kind in their interpretation, and compare them to this letter and how different it feels. Because that different feeling, that's what I think the researcher was talking about. Not that every letter is completely different than the Slave Narrative Project, but because of the circumstances that led to them, they came out differently. And we should use all available perspectives to form our understanding. So with that very, very long lead up, I am excited to present to you Jourdan Anderson writes his former enslaver in 1865. This is, from what I can tell, this is the most famous fugitive slave letter. And I think it's very easy to see why once we read it. So, as an introduction to this from the American Yap Reader, they say, Black Americans hoped that the end of the Civil War would create an entirely new world, while white Southerners tried to restore the antebellum order as much as they could. Most former enslavers sought to maintain control over their labors through sharecropping tactics. P.H. Anderson of Tennessee was one such former enslaver. After the war, he contacted former enslaved laborer Jourdan Anderson, offering him a job opportunity. The following is Jourdan's reply. Dayton, Ohio, August 7th, 1865. To my old master, Colonel P.H. Anderson, Big Spring, Tennessee. Sir, I got your letter, and was glad to find you had not forgotten Jourdan. and that you wanted me to come back and live with you again, promising to do better for me than anybody else can. I have often felt uneasy about you. I thought the Yankees would have hung you long before this, for harboring Rebs they found at your house. I suppose they never heard about your going to Colonel Martin's to kill the Union soldier that was left by his company in their stable. Although you shot at me twice before I left you, I did not want to hear of you being hurt, and I am glad that you are still living. It would do me good to go back to the dear old home again, to see Miss Mary, Miss Martha, and Alan, Esther, Green, and Lee. Give my love to them all, and tell them I hope we will meet in a better world, if not this. I would have gone back to see you all when I was working in the Nashville hospital, but one of the neighbors told me that Henry intended to shoot me if he ever got the chance. I want to know particularly what the good chance you propose to give me is. I am doing tolerably well here. I get $25 a month with victuals and clothing, and have a comfortable home for Mandy. The folks call her Mrs. Anderson, and the children, Millie, Jane, and Grundy. They go to school and are learning well. The teacher says Grundy has a head for a preacher. They go to Sunday school, and Mandy and me attend church regularly. We are kindly treated. Sometimes we hear other people saying, them colored people were slaves down in Tennessee. The children feel hurt when they hear such remarks. But I tell them it was no disgrace in Tennessee to belong to Colonel Anderson. Many would have been proud, as I used to be, to call you master. Now, if you will write and say what wages you will give me, I will be better able to decide whether it would be my advantage to move back again. As to my freedom, which you say I can have, there is nothing to be gained on that score. I got my free papers in 1864 from the Provost Marshal General of the Department of Nashville. Mandy says she would be afraid to go back without some proof that you were disposed to treat us kindly and justly. And we have concluded to test your sincerity by asking you to send us wages for the time we served you. This will make us forget and forgive old scores, and rely on your justice and friendship in the future. I served you faithfully for 32 years, and Mandy for 20 years. At $25 a month for me, and $2 a week for Mandy, our earnings would amount to $11,680. Add to this interest for the time our wages have been kept back, and deduct what you paid for our clothing, and 3 doctor's visits to me, and pulling a tooth for Mandy, and the balance will show that we are what we are in justice entitled to. Please send the money by Adams Express in care of V. Winters, Esquire. If you fail to pay us for faithful labors in the past, we can have little faith in your promises in the future. We trust the good Maker has opened your eyes to the wrongs which you and your fathers have done to me and my fathers in making us toil for you for generations without recompense. Here I draw my wages every Saturday night, but in Tennessee there was never a payday for us any more than for the horses and the cows. Surely there will be a day of reckoning for those who defrauded the laborer of his hire. In answering this letter, please state if there would be any safety for my Millie and Jane, who are now grown up and both good-looking girls. You know how it was with poor Matilda and Catherine. I would rather stay here and starve, and die if it come to that, than have my girls brought to shame by the violence and wickedness of their young masters. You will also please state if there has been any schools opened for the colored children in your neighborhood. The great desire of my life now is to give my children an education and for them to have virtuous habits. Say howdy to George Carter and thank him for taking the pistol from you when you were shooting at me. From your old servant, Jourdan Anderson. I think you can see why that is known as the most popular one. I think it is the one that is most easy, and to be blunt, lighthearted, enjoyable insight. But I think we have seen the other side of this. We have talked about this. This is not the first thing we are learning, and we can't act like it's the first thing we're learning. It has to fit in context with everything else we've heard. And fitting in that context, it's very remarkable to me the difference in tone here. How much more pointed and angry and ruthless it is when talking to his old master. I'm excited to share more of the fugitive slave letters in coming months and weeks, and as well as more context and critiques for them and how they might add to our understanding.